All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our Ready to Read Michigan webinar for 2025. We have Jen Strauss here from Story Be Told, and I'd like to thank the Institute for Museum and Library Services for supporting this webinar today. My name is Kathy Lancaster. I am the Youth Services Coordinator at the Library of Michigan. And I'm just gonna hand it right over because Jen's got a whole lot of material today on engaging bigs and littles during story time. So Jen, take it away.
Thank you, Kathy. I want to send out a great big welcome to everyone on the webinar from snowy Traverse City, Michigan. It's been, as Kathy told me, not as cold up here as downstate. So I hope you're all staying warm. We have a beautiful snowy day, and I'm just very happy to be with all of you today to share some family engagement ideas. Whether you are brand new to my webinars or returning, I welcome you all today to this webinar in hopes that the information that I'm going to share with you today is very helpful to you moving forward. So I'm going to share my PowerPoint now. So I'd like to start by letting you know what it is that I'm attempting to do today with you all in this webinar, and you probably saw that in the handouts as well. Let me see if I can, okay. So today I would like to conduct this webinar by giving you 4 different parts. So the first part of this is to define family engagement. What is it? Why is it important at the library? And how do we achieve more of it in our libraries? The second part is going to be a list of incredible resources that you can access after this webinar. If you want to dig a little bit deeper, and particularly one resource that if you don't click on any of them, the last resource is just a spectacular resource for story time and engagement. So I'll show you all that in part 2. For part 3 of this webinar, and this is sometimes a controversial subject, we are going to explore how to set up storytime guidelines that will promote successful family engagement. And then finally, at the end of the webinar, we're going to look at the 5 practices again. And if you've been to any of my webinars before this one, you'll know that I talk a lot about using the 5 practices in story time. But today we're going to look at the 5 practices specifically for how to optimize family engagement. So let's get started, shall we? The first thing that I'd like you to do is to hit the chat. And this is a question that I would like you to answer in the chat. And I want you to know that after this webinar, you will receive the recording. You will receive my PowerPoint deck. You will also receive everything that was shared in the chat. And my experience with librarians and webinars is that they share some incredible information with each other in the chat. So here's the question. When I say family engagement, what words, events, or ideas come to mind for you? So go ahead and chat those out, please. What words, events, or ideas come to mind for you when we say the words family engagement? So let's take a look. And Kathy, maybe we can read a few of those when they come
Sure,
through.
sure.
Let's give people a minute or two to chat, and then if we can read maybe 3 or 4 of the top ones, if they're repeating, maybe a little bit further down.
Yep, I see all ages, active participants, multi-generational, again, that's all ages, smiling, excitement, grown-up participation,
Hallelujah.
welcoming to everyone, no phones,
Hallelujah again. We're going to talk about that.
fun for people of all ages, bonding time, adult participation in a youthful activity,
Let's do one more.
teaching caregivers tools to use at home and engage with their children.
Oh, that's a perfect one. Oh, wonderful. Thank you for that input. And you'll have all of those ideas when you get the recording in the chat. So we're going to do another one, a little bit more serious one, because I know you've all dealt with this. Second chat. Oh, my slides aren't moving. Hang on. Okay. how did the pandemic, I'm sorry to remind you of that, how did the pandemic make things better or more challenging for family engagement at your library? So did things get better because of things that you learned in the pandemic about engaging families, or did things become more challenging for engaging families because of the pandemic? So if you'll chat some of those out, and again, Kathy, we'll read a few of those out loud to see what people have to say about what the pandemic did to us as librarians.
Sure. Hard to build up attendees
Afterwards, right? Yeah,
afterwards.
yeah,
Preschoolers who don't have library experience.
right.
Take and makes, which
Mhm.
have still been popular.
Positive thing.
Pandemic led to isolation, now working on rebuilding connections.
Still, right? Yep.
People appreciated us more once things went back to some semblance of order.
That's nice to hear.
Reaching families that didn't previously come to the library.
That's awesome. Yeah. Let's do one more.
I'm seeing a lot of the experience, like the social emotional learning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the lack of that, you mean?
Being
Yeah,
unable to focus,
yeah,
interact.
yeah. Yep, for sure. And I'm sure seeing that in my performances with little ones as well. We're coming back, but they didn't have the early experiences. So thank you for that share out. So I'd like to start. Okay, I have to admit this, okay? This is the first time that I've accessed AI for a definition. I wanted to see what they had to say and then also go into what PLA has to say about family engagement. So first experience with AI. Here's what they said about family engagement. A library is a place where families can gather, explore new worlds together, and nurture a love of learning, providing a foundation for lifelong curiosity and connection. I thought that was really solid. So a few other points that AI made about family engagement. On family bonding, highlights that the library is a space for families to spend quality time together, and I heard that in one of the chat comments. Learning and discovery emphasizes the opportunity for families to explore new ideas and knowledge through books and resources. And I would like to add to that activities and events to that list for learning and discovery. Lifelong impact suggests that the library can cultivate a love of reading and learning that lasts throughout a person's life. So I just wanted to share that because as I was preparing and I saw the other definitions that I was working with, I thought, I wonder what AI has to say about this, and I had never done that before. So um, I want to make a comment here before we do one more chat, before we really dig into definitions and meanings of the whys, whats, ways, and how for family engagement. That when I was growing up in the 60s, I never went to the library with my family. I had one family member who absolutely loved reading, and she was the only one that engaged me with services at the library. I was 4, she was 10. My older sister Leslie loved books, and so she would put me on a Detroit City bus and take me to the library pictured here. Some of you, if you've been with me before, may have heard these stories. It was called the Sherwood Forest Public Library, one of the Detroit public libraries. I had never been before, and Leslie took me in, and we met the librarian, and underneath those front windows beyond the bikes was the children's section, and the first time that I had ever been there. The librarian told me that I could take out as many books as I wanted, and we got back on that Detroit City bus. I had an armload of books. My sister Leslie had an armload of books, and we went home and dumped them on her bed where she spent the rest of the afternoon reading to me, and she always read to me from then on. My parents in those days were both working, and they never really read to me. Thank God for Leslie, right? So the other time when I was engaged with the library was discovering a summer reading, but I did that by accident. My parents didn't take me. I had no idea what summer reading was until one day at Parks and Rec, I I got sick of playing knock hockey with the kids in my neighborhood. And I started wandering around our elementary school because there was something really intriguing about looking in the windows when school wasn't in session. And I came all the way around and realized that the door to the library in our school was wide open. And I wandered in to see our librarian, Mrs. Wells, and ask her why she was there during the summer. She said, "Haven't you heard of summer reading?" And I hadn't. So Mrs. Wells signed me up. In those days, it was just a card with your name and lines for the books that you would read. And then if you went back into the library the next week, they would put a stamp or a sticker on that card. And I said, "Where do I begin?" And Mrs. Wells took me over to the section where the Little House on the Prairie books were, and that's where I began. But if I hadn't wandered, I would have never have discovered summer reading. So really my engagement with families started to happen when I became a storyteller and a narrative consultant. And I want to tell you about one night in Minnesota, and we'll reference this at the very end of the webinar. I was hired by an elementary school in Rosemont in Minnesota, right outside of Minneapolis. Their goal was to collaborate with the library. So the Rosemont Title IX teacher connected with the public library in Rosemont and decided to offer an event together, a family night. So they combined their resources and their knowledge and their skills to put together this amazing family night. It happened at the school. Everybody came, and the first thing that we did was sit down and eat a spaghetti dinner together that people in the community had volunteered to cook and serve. All right, people from the school. After dinner, families were given a list of activities that were located in classrooms around the school. And in every one of those classrooms, there was either a game, a word game, a math game, or a craft activity, something to make and build. And they traveled to all of those activities in small groups of families. At the end of those activities, we all gathered back in the gymnasium where I did a storytelling program for all the bigs and the kids, featuring the 5 practices in that storytelling program so that families were engaging with each other. We also developed a book swap, and I know many of you have probably done this, where families bring in the books that they're not really using any longer and contribute those. And then you're able to take a book home from the other books that families have brought, one that interested you as a family or one of the kids, and take that home. That night, we had resources to offer all the families one Robert Munsch book, because I had featured one of the Munsch stories. He's one of my favorite authors because he was a storyteller first. And I have done Mortimer for many, many years. Some of you have seen me do that. We did Mortimer together that night, but Robert Munsch has written over 140 books. So families could select one of the Munsch books to take home. But before the night was over, we had a quiet time where everybody had blankets, and families sat down all over the gymnasium and either read to each other, or a big read to the kids, either the book that they got in the swap or the book that they had picked up off of the Munch table. So it was an incredible family event. And I've been a part of those family nights and other family events for the last 30 years that engages those bigs and those kids. But it didn't happen for me until I was about 30 years old. So the next thing I want you to put in the chat box is for you to share a family engagement experience that you have had, either as a kid yourself, with your family now, if you're a parent, or an aunt or an uncle, right? Or as a youth librarian. Will you please chat out a family engagement experience that you remember, either from when you were a kid with your own family or as a youth librarian? And again, Kathy, we'll read some of those off before we dig in a little deeper.
Read and play in the park,
Oh, fun.
school carnivals as a kid,
Yeah.
Science Alive events, winter days, winter days at our library, family science nights, Lego club,
Mhm.
evening story time, A movie at DPL,
Movie night.
Grandparents' Day, homeschool hangout,
Oh, fun. Yep.
writing club,
Let's do a couple more.
build a fort activity or
Oh,
build
I
a
love
reading
that.
fort.
So
hmm
fun. Cardboard box play.
Um, pumpkin carving and apple picking. And oh yeah, this one's very popular, the touch a truck events.
Oh, fun. Yep. Yep. So a good collaboration with community partners. Yep.
An unlazy river outdoor obstacle course.
Oh, very fun. Very fun. And a lot of these ideas reflect some of the things we're going to talk about a little bit later. Let's do one more and then we're going to move on.
Baby ball
Ooh,
for Thousand Books Before Kindergarten. I don't know what baby ball is, but I
I
assume
don't
that's
either.
getting
Curious.
dressed up and having a dance party, maybe.
Or a ball, a game with a ball.
Yes, Lisa said yes, it's a ball.
Oh, very fun. Very fun. Thank you for all those ideas. And again, they'll be in the chat for you if you want to go back and look and gain more ideas from your wonderful colleagues here on the webinar. All right, let's dig in. um, I don't want to overwhelm I don't want to overwhelm you all by sharing all the family engagement ideas that I am going to be sharing, but instead inspire you to perhaps engage more or look at what you're already doing at your libraries and see what you could add on. One more thing that might engage families that you could add on. So my intent is not to overwhelm, but instead to inform. And the slide in front of you is my attempt without words to recognize two things. One, the research that I did on family engagement, and many of those resources came from links that Kathy gave me, and then I dug a little deeper. A lot of the resources came from Public Library Association Task Force and a group out of Harvard that did a ton of research on family engagement. This all started in 2015. Between 2015 and 2018, they offered a number of different resources, which I'm going to share with you later. Webinars, trainings, resources, booklets, toolkits, idea book, and they offered those to libraries so that they could start viewing family engagement as an umbrella or a hub that went across all library departments, right? So what I also want to recognize is indicated in the images before you. Since 2018, incredible things have changed for libraries that have gotten in the way of some of that. And I just want to recognize that, especially in the middle there, the COVID-19 pandemic changed so many things for us on many different levels, not only how we presented programming to our patrons, but also it changed many other things in terms of how families engaged, how they came back, as you indicated, and started to engage again. It changed how comfortable people felt being in open and public spaces. It changed the way our kids responded to programming and knew how to behave during programs. So I want to recognize that. I also want to point out that the other things that have changed have made your jobs incredibly more challenging. Book banning, gender issues, and trying to give people information that they need, and then having oftentimes the public come back and tell you that you cannot do that. You cannot offer those books. So dealing with the public on those issues, political divisions, knowing that we have to serve all our patrons, but political divisions causing some stress and some challenges in your jobs, changes in staffing. After the pandemic, so many people left the workforce. They either retired early or left and went on to do something else, which means there's been huge turnover in the library world, and not all the people that are coming in are trained as media specialists or master degrees librarians. And then finally, in the last image there, resources and money in order to do what you need to do, in order to offer all the things that you want to offer for family engagement to your patrons, but being limited possibly by resources, finances, and then also possibly the attitude of administration when it comes to providing more programming. So I just wanted to recognize that as we move into definitions. But I also want you to know, again, this is not to overwhelm, but to just provide inspiration, to ask yourselves, what else can I be doing beyond story time? How can I motivate the people in the other departments of my library to embrace maybe one new activity or one new way of looking at family engagement? Okay, so I'm going to go on now to give you, and I wanted to tell you that this is all spelled out in your handouts. You can either follow along with me if you printed them out or look at them later, but I'll be sharing more details than what is on the slides. You can follow along if you want, or just listen to me. So this is what PLA has to say about what family engagement is. Family engagement is a shared responsibility among families, educators, and communities to support children's learning and development. So all those people are responsible for children's learning and development. Family engagement begins at birth. I like to say it begins before birth if we're going to supply resources and support for new moms before those babies are born, right? So it begins at birth or before birth, and it continues through young adulthood and happens anywhere children can learn, especially at the library. Children spend only 20% of their waking hours in school. Learning happens both in school and 80% of the time out of school. It's anywhere, anytime learning. And children and youth thrive when they have opportunities to explore and discover their interests in a variety of spaces, including at home, other places in the community, and at the library. So that task force got put together in 2015, came up with this definition of family engagement. So what does it do for families? It does a lot for families. And the more family engagement that we can provide, the more they're going to benefit from it at your library. Family engagement is about developing knowledge, attitudes, values, and behaviors that enable children to be motivated, enthusiastic, and successful lifelong learners. In libraries, this means having respectful partnerships with families and providing information, guidance, and opportunities for families to be active in their own children's learning and development. So encouraging them to be more active in their learning and development and empowering those bigs with skills and modeling and all the things that you provide to build their confidence to engage with their children in positive ways. Families support their children's learning when they believe that they are responsible for their children's education and when they feel confident that what they say and do makes a difference with their kids. Trusted community educators, including librarians, can partner with, listen to, encourage, and inspire families to be engaged in their children's learning at any point in a child's lifetime. All right, so this is what it does for families. And if we do more family engagement in our libraries, then more families are going to benefit in these ways. Why is it important? And there's a very long list, and I'll do a shorter version, but it's incredibly important to provide more family engagement at libraries. And later, I'll talk about this, to partner with community partners so that that kind of engagement isn't just happening in your library, but happening in many different places in your community with the support of the library and that community partner, as I exemplified in that family night a little earlier. So let's look at why it's so important. For public libraries, family engagement is a natural next step in supporting children's learning and development from birth to young adulthood. I suggest that prenatal is where we should begin. And at the library, if those moms are coming in, those babies haven't been born yet, we're the ones that supply them with information about resources before that baby is even born. Okay, so being the one that provides that information. PLA's work on family engagement aims to help libraries serve families of all types with children of all ages. And it was the Every Child Ready to Read program that was the foundation for all this other family engagement information that came out of the PLA task force. Increased family engagement can improve outcomes for children, including brain development, reading abilities, mathematical skills, social and emotional learning, and digital literacy. Early literacy efforts like Every Child Ready to Read support parents and children and create a springboard for new ideas and practices libraries can use to engage families even more successfully. By incorporating the Every Child Ready to Read into programming, we encourage our member libraries to form respectful partnerships with families early on that offer information, guidance, and opportunities for families to be active in their children's learning and develop from birth through early adulthood. And finally, isolated activities and story times can be a part of a more intentional family engagement plan across departments. So again, you've already have established programs at your libraries. So instead of trying to change everything, where are those places that you can add one more activity, one more way for families to engage, one more way to collaborate with a community partner? Okay, so those are the reasons that PLA has given for why it is so important. How do we create more of it at our libraries? How do we look at the places where we can do just a little bit of add-on to support families in a bigger way? So here are some ways to do that. For public libraries, family engagement, it's a natural next step in supporting children's learning and developing from birth to young adulthood. I'm sorry, I have to move down. Sorry, I lost my place. So family engagement is about building relationships with families and doing that early. You already do that in your story times when those new families come into the library and you start engaging with them when those littles are on their laps as babies. But this is saying that we can promote that even all the way through young adulthood. It's not a specific curriculum or a program. It's a way of meeting families where they are and giving them opportunities to design how they would like to promote their children's learning and development from infancy all the way through young adulthood. Depending upon your community and your community resources, family engagement can take different forms and happen anywhere, anytime children can learn. Family engagement builds on family strengths. And this is a big one because we want to start enlisting those families, whatever their skills are, their expertise is, or their knowledge base is. We become partners with those bigs so that they can help us supply those family engagement experiences. It recognizes that they have knowledge, skills, and values that can contribute to making libraries better learning spaces for everyone. Just as families can learn from librarians, librarians can learn from families through formally and informally surveying their needs. We'll talk more about that in a bit. Family engagement is not a one-size-fits-all process. Programs are tailored to community interests, resources, and needs, but also personalized for individual families, inviting meaningful family participation and interactions through activities and community service. Family engagement is intentional. It is planned based on research, following the core principles and practices that support meaningful and effective family engagement. And finally, it's systematic. The elements of leadership, engagement, and support function together to ensure that libraries reach, serve, and involve families as partners in children's lifelong learning. A challenge in one of these elements affects the other. Libraries are also embedded in a larger, bigger system of institutions in your community that serve children, making community partnerships incredibly essential to the success of library leadership and family engagement. So there has to be buy-in from administration, boards, etc., for family engagement to be an across departments thing in your libraries. So those are some ways to how to create more of it. Let's look at what PLA calls the 5 R's of family engagement. And before I talk a little bit about those 5 R's, and you can follow along in your handout if you want for more information. What's really incredibly important for every library is that we survey our communities and we identify the populations that are not being served. We know the families who are comfortable coming to the library, and we know those families that have engaged with you from the very beginning and they're still with you, and those kids are coming back as they get older to use the library for research and homework, etc. We know those families, but in every community, we have those who are not comfortable coming to the library, or they haven't come before, or perhaps they're in a situation where coming to the library is really difficult for them because of transportation and other issues. So it's really important that we do a community assessment, each of us, so that we discover in our community where those marginalized people are, and then ask ourselves, how can we reach out and how can we engage those families a little bit better? It may be that there are homeless people with families that need to be interacted with. It might be that we're going to engage differently with families in our community that had English as a second language. So doing community assessment is really essential for targeting the populations that really need to be reached out to. All right, and invite them to either come to the library or provide ways to engage them closer to home for them in different places where community partners will help do that. So here are the 5 R's of family engagement. So the first one is reaching out. Identify community partners to collaborate with to affect family engagement. This can be preschools, religious organizations, summer camps, nature centers, parks and rec, YMCA, health clinics, public housing, food pantries, laundromats, farmers market, homeless shelters, learning groups, play groups, single parent organization, and even incarcerated parents. I've just started working with our group here in Traverse City called Before, During, and After Incarceration. And we're holding dinners on the 3rd Tuesday of every month for the families of incarcerated individuals, so we can help and support those families engaging with their children while they're experiencing incarceration of one of their family members. So reaching out into the community. Raising up voices. So elevating family and voices by engaging and involving parents and caregivers in informal conversations when they're with you in the library, a suggestion box at your library, in-person or online surveys of families, so surveying their needs, family meetings, focus groups to discover what they need and what they want from their library. So surveying those families and raising up their voices so that they're heard, and then you put in place programs after you hear what it is that they need most for engagement. Reinforcing. Parents and caregivers are the child's first teachers. Libraries can empower families by inviting them to the library, creating welcoming spaces for them to hang out and spend time together, modeling early literacy and reading practices in your story times and other family programs, offering interesting parent-child activities that promote learning in a variety of topics, including math, science, makerspace, STEM, cooking, crafts, arts, and movement. So thinking about all those ways that we can engage families. Relating. Provide a variety of opportunities for families to gather and build peer-to-peer relationships. Really important that they feel like there's other family members out there that they can talk to, connect with, and share stories with. Offer ways for parents and caregivers to do social networking, both live and online. Offer time before and after story times for parents to meet, talk, and share contact information. Offer live or online focus groups, parent cafes to connect socially and share ideas. Use social media to connect with parents by sharing parenting tips if they give you permission to contact them that way. And finally, the last of the 5 R's is to reimagine. Reimagine family engagement. It doesn't only have to happen at the library. Plan with families in mind by expanding your community partnerships with agencies that already are serving families in your community. Combine resources with them. Extend your range of impact in the community. You can provide children and family well-being and connect families with new learning opportunities. Try partnering with the early childhood organizations in your community and offer home visits Create book bag exchanges, parent-child group focused on transition to school skills. So offering focus groups where you're just focusing on that transition from the time when they're in preschool or before school and making that transition into kindergarten. Feature your community organizations and programs at your library, or plan a field trip if you have resources to go to those community resources and they can give a tour and explain what they have to offer to your families. Create new concepts for traditional programming, like taking the library programming out of the library and offering those programs for summer reading, weekends, and evenings at school during school breaks by including more family outings and activities at camps, going hiking, doing cookouts, trivia nights, photo contests, scavenger hunts, board game nights, makerspace, and STEM activities. I always like to promote the idea of holding programs outside of the library. And I've done a ton of this for libraries all across the state and in other places where they take me and the library, and we to go to places like the movie theater in your town where kids and families are already gathered on a Saturday morning. Kathy and I did this years ago here in Traverse City. It was a huge success. I've done programs on Saturday mornings at the Burger King in the play area, but we close the play area down, do a story time, and then Burger King offers the snacks. I've done programs at farmers markets, in campgrounds that are close to your community, at lighthouses, and even at parks and rec. Last summer, I was in Munising up in the Upper Peninsula, and it was raining like crazy. And when I went into the library, there were only a few families that had gathered. When I asked where everyone was, the librarian told me, well, there's 60 kids over at the Parks and Rec building, but they didn't want to walk over to the library in the rain. I said, can we take this show on the road? And we asked those families that had already gathered to drive a few blocks over to the Parks and Rec building. And then we held our program there. And we had over 80 people gather between families and the kids at Parks and Rec to do our Storytime program for summer reading. So really thinking out of the box and reimagining where we can do those programs so that we can enlist the most family engagement as possible. So those are the 5 R's. And I'm going to now go into the resource list where everything that I've just presented to you in terms of the why or what, the whys and the ways and how to do more of it. And then these 5 R's are all in these resources. So you have live links in your handout for these resources. I just want to go over a few of them because some of them are really incredible. I mean, it really depends on you whether you want to take a deeper dive or not. But there's one resource at the end that I really want you to go to because it's just going to help you with family engagement and story time in so many ways. So the Public Library Association, their initial initiative and the task force created these resources that you can access. They created a toolkit which gives you ways to promote your family engagement programs out in the library and out in your communities so that families become more aware of the power of engagement, and also they become more aware of the events that you are sponsoring or doing in collaboration with community partners that they can come to and access those resources. So the toolkit is really helpful. The idea book that PLA put together about a year after the task force is filled with ideas. Are filled with ideas that are case studies from libraries all across the country who have worked on family engagement and have had success with their programming. So those case studies are in there. There's a framework of elements, a flow chart that I'll show you in the next slide that shows the different elements of family engagement, how to execute those, and then the 5 R's, and then what it will do for your families, for the library, and for your community. The National Center for Families Learning is an incredible resource. So I want to highlight that one to go to. They have an incredibly powerful website with resources. They have webinars that you can click on and get training from that are on demand and incredible. They have a blog They have programs, initiatives. They even offer national training opportunities. They have an annual conference that looked just fabulous. So make sure you check out the National Center for Families Learning. There's a book now that came from the initial research from that Harvard research group. The same three people that started that research in 2015 have come out with a book where all of that research and all of that information from the task force, the Harvard research group, is compiled in this book. It's called A Librarian's Guide to Engaging Families and Learning, including the Circulating Ideas podcast. Great podcast. I listened to a number of them, and they were just fabulous for getting more information and hearing perspectives on family engagement. The Library of Congress has incredible resources for family engagement, lots of different programs featured there that you can adapt for your own library and your own community. So check that out. And finally, the one in bolds, in rust at the bottom of this page, and also the bottom of your resource sheet, the one with the live links, is Jaybrary. And if you haven't engaged with this resource yet, you need to go there right after this webinar if you have time, or later when you do have time. It's called Tune In for Storytime Success. And these two young librarians offer a blog. They offer a plethora of YouTube examples of different ways to engage families in story time. I watched, I don't know how many, 100, I swear, and just had the most wonderful time watching them give you ideas for story time, both songs, there's book lists, there's a blog at the very end. I think this is on your sheet. Engaging Caregivers in Storytime by Dana Horak. She's one of the librarians of this site. That's just amazing for getting more information about engaging. So please check out that resource. And again, all of those are in your handout with live links so that you can access those a little bit later. Okay. Kathy, are there any questions at this point? A lot of information.
No questions that I see right now.
All right. Thank you for hanging in there with me, because I took a deep dive, and those were the things that I thought was the most important parts of what PLA Task Force had offered, and then what other people had offered after that task force had put out all that information to help me understand the power of family engagement and help you with the ideas that we're going to do for the rest of this webinar. Okay. So thanks for enduring that. I hope it was useful. And when you get the slide deck, I hope you'll refer back to that as you consider ways of adding on in programming across your library for family engagement. Here's the flow chart that I was talking about earlier. It's also a link in that sheet of resources in your handouts. So this flow sheet talks about the things that we've already talked about. Is your leadership engaged to create more family engagement at your library by securing resources, by building that into your future goals? The engagement part of it, those 5 R's that we just went over, how to do that in your community with your families. And then those support services that you're going to provide, creating welcoming spaces, providing technology access and guidance. And that flows down into what libraries will do to increase family engagement, what families will benefit from, and then finally how children will benefit from that. So it's a beautiful flow chart that sort of consolidates all these ideas that I've just been talking about. So that's in your resources. All right, we're going to switch gears now. Thank you for enduring all the gobbledygook, but I really wanted to share that information because I wasn't sure how many librarians on this call have actually looked at that information. It's not as current, but it's really powerful, and there's more current resources that came out after the task force. So if you've already explored all that material, great, bravo. If you really want to understand how you can improve family engagement at your library, dig deep the way that I did, because there's incredible ideas out there for you to take to your administration, to talk about in your own department, and possibly a meeting across departments so that your staff can say, how can we do this better? How can we do more engagement? So part 2, we're going to lighten things. Well, maybe we'll lighten things up a little bit more, but we'll lighten things up even more a little bit later. So I want to talk about something that's come up in every training that I've done across this country. And the questions have always come up when I'm doing story time or Every Child Ready to Read, 5 practices training. In every state that I've been in, these questions have come up, right? How do I get the bigs off of their phones? How do I engage those bigs while I'm working with their littles, with the kids? And so I want to address that in this second part by giving you story time guidelines. And I also know that as public servants, as librarians who serve all families and all populations, you feel, or at least librarians have told me, that they feel a little intimidated when it comes to directing parents, telling them what to do. And so we're going to look at these guidelines in a little bit of a different way. Um, we're going to look at them in a more positive way, not a pointed or punitive way. We're going to look at a way to build storytime guidelines so that you don't have to deal with those issues in the first place. Okay. So I've heard all those stories, and even in my own storytime programming, I've had to change the way that I do it so that it is not a situation where all the bigs are sitting in chairs against the back wall and there's an alphabet carpet square or carpet squares or an alphabet rug that all the kids are sitting on. And I'm engaging with those kids, and the bigs in the back tend to either talk to each other, right? Because they have that opportunity and they really need to connect with each other, or, right, they're on their phones, right? And we've all seen this and we've all dealt with it. And in a minute, I'm going to ask you ideas for how you have dealt with it. So we want story time to look a little bit different. Now, we can't assume how bigs are coming into our story times. We have to congratulate them for making the effort to bring their kids to story time, knowing that it's going to benefit that kid in their development, their language and literacy development. So we have to give kudos, pats on the back, and congratulations and thank yous for those bigs who have brought them in, because we don't know whether this is the only hour out of the day where that big is not in charge of that kid and has no breaks at all. So we're not going to make any assumptions. But we're also not going to assume that those bigs know what to do during story time, or that they might be feeling a little shy, right? Or a little embarrassed, or just don't know what to do and how to join in. And so that is up to you to direct them. It's up to us to direct them. We don't want to wait for interruptions to happen before we make notice of that. We don't want to be punitive. We don't want to be sarcastic, because that never really works. And I've had times, right, when I thought I've set the story time up really well, but there's a kid who gets up and starts bugging other kids or interrupting them from participating, or they come up and start grabbing things off of my table. And usually I look up and say, is there someone that belongs to this child? And most of the time, not always, right? Most of the time, that big will recognize what's going on and come and engage with that kid. So we don't want to leave it up to sarcasm or punitive measures to remedy that situation. I have found that establishing storytime guidelines in the beginning, when families first come to you new, and repeating those many times, even posting them on the wall. I'll show you one example here in a minute, to help bigs know what is expected of them during story time, how they can help make it more positive for their kids, and have a wonderful experience together with their kids. So let's look at some guidelines. I have 9 of them, because we want story time to look more like this, right? Engagement. So here we go. Guideline number 1. Set up your guidelines early on. Revisit those storytime guidelines often. One of the really great times of year to revisit storytime guidelines is in the fall, because families tend to settle into a bigger routine at that point. Their older kids are going back to school. Families might re-engage with storytime after the summer, and they're going to be bringing those kids to storytime again, or possibly for the first time in the fall, Early story times in the fall are wonderful places to remind bigs and littles about what is expected at story time, how those bigs can help to make that experience a really positive one for their kids. So that's number one. Number two, build in your story time program a chat and play time before and after story time. Make that space available before the program begins and let them know that there is things that they can come and do 15, 20 minutes before story time begins, and that they can stay 15, 20 minutes after and engage with each other and in activities so they don't have to leave right away. So you're providing that connection time for bigs and activities for the kids. Ask everyone to make a name tag during that chat and play time before story time. I really like the plastic, I know they're plastic and you can do this any way you want to do, but the reusable ones where there's a round slip that can be taken out and put back in again. You can have markers so they can decorate their name tags. They put that name tag in and snap it shut and put it on. And the bigs and the kids can make these name tags with each other while they're talking and while they're sharing with other bigs, and put those name tags on so that they can learn each other's names and you have those names so that you can call on people during story time. So I really love these plastic ones. Of course, there's many different versions of this that you can engage with. So have them build name tags in that beginning before story time. Provide toys, building blocks, puppets, stuffed animals, and play activities so kids can play and bigs can visit. Provide a beverage or a simple snack if you have the resources and budget to do that. If you have a really tight storytime group, you might take turns having bigs bring snacks, but you got to be kind of careful about that. So providing a snack and a beverage during that chat time is a wonderful thing, either before or after your story time. At the beginning of story time, have your bigs introduce themselves, name tags, right? And introduce their kids. Give everybody one favorite so we can start getting to know families a little bit better. It can be a favorite book, it could be a favorite game, it could be a favorite food, or a favorite stuffed animal. But having them share before story time so you can start building those relationships between bigs and their kids. Right? So number three, those English as a second language families, if you're in a community that has them, we need to really pay attention to the fact that they might be really uncomfortable in story time. They might not even come because of that. And we need to find ways to make them more comfortable. So learn a few words of their language if you can. Learn a song if you can. Or bilingual stories, right? The books that have a bilingual aspect to them is a really wonderful thing to increase their comfort level. If that isn't a possibility for you, but you still have English as a second language people in your audience coming to story time, or you would like them to feel more comfortable coming to story time, if possible, invite those bigs and kids to come up and translate the stories that you are sharing. Okay. You can also model for them how you can use wordless books. And you might introduce a wordless book in story time and everybody talks about what those pictures mean to them. But you can also direct those bigs who have English as a second language to do the same with those pictures in their own language. And it's a wonderful way for them to then share that same wordless picture book in their own language with their kids. Number four, really important. Number four to me is one of the more crucial things that's going to help you engage with those bigs. Choose your storytime content with engagement in mind. How is this going to get the bigs and the kids to work together? How will they have to engage with each other during this song, this story? So choose songs, rhymes, and activities that require big and little hands to work together. Choose stories that lend themselves to repeating lines, songs, and movement. I'm going to give you two examples here in a minute. Make sure that when it's an engagement time that you direct them to be face-to-face and knee-to-knee. face to face and knee to knee. So they might have to move their carpet squares, move their chairs, depending on where they're comfortable sitting, so that they're actually facing each other, face to face, eye contact, knee to knee, contact with that kid and that big. Choose songs and rhymes that can also be a game. And give bigs shakers or rhythm sticks, not the littles, the bigs, so that they can participate with you in songs by keeping the rhythm that way, and that'll engage them as well. Number 5, invite bigs to engage with you with enthusiasm and give them clear instructions. Invite them to sit together in chairs, on rugs, and on carpet squares with their kids. Remind bigs that they are their kids' best and most important teacher. They are the model. And you can remind them that when story time is over, they have you, right? Not the librarian. They have their parent or their caregiver to go home with. And they want to hear more from that person than they do from you on an ongoing basis. So remind them of that. Ask your bigs to help you. Give them a role. Give them a job in story time. Many bigs may be new to this or feel a little bit shy or uncertain. So you're going to give them instructions, give them roles, even give them props to manipulate to invite them into the engagement of your story time. Remind bigs how appreciated they are, give them compliments, give them encouragement, let them know that they don't have to sing well to sing along. Post the words on, I'm going to do this in the next one. Post the words on flip charts, or some librarians, and I've started doing this as well, have created PowerPoint slides that they put on a whiteboard that has all the words of the songs and all the words of the rhymes to give those bigs confidence for joining in, right? Number 7, that was number 6, the PowerPoint or flip charts. End your story time with a snuggle in the lap song. I'll give you 2 of them. Or and or goodbye songs, and we'll be covering those. Number 8, and I know this is really hard because you feel really uncomfortable directing those bigs and telling them what to do, but for all the reasons in the other 7 guidelines for story time, this one allows them to fully engage. So have a very positive phones off and away, it's time to learn and play role. Phones off and away, it's time to learn and play. Okay, bigs, I need you. I need you to be a part of this story time because you're your child's best teacher. I need your voice to join mine. So come on and be with us. But in order to do that, we have a rule during story time, phones off and away. It's time to learn and play. And I know that's a hard one, but if you do it in a positive way, an enthusiastic way, and those bigs know that they are needed, then they're going to feel differently about engaging during story time. And finally, number 9. So this came out of Jayberry blog that's listed in your resources. But at the end of that blog, as librarians do so well, they shared other ideas. And one of the librarians said they post this acronym in their storytime area, and they go over them early on and often, make sure that bigs know what the expectation is for them. So K, keep your child close to you, right? So sit with them, not in the back, but with them, either on carpet squares, on the rug, or in chairs, but sit together. I, intervene if your child needs redirection. So if that child has become distracted by something, then intervene, bring them back, engage them again. D, do activities with your child to comfort, encourage, and model for them that language activities are really fun, really necessary, and really important. S, save extra conversation for chat and playtime before and after story time. So if you go to that guideline, providing them the way to connect and talk before, have a snack, do an activity, make a name tag, and then when story time is over, have another 15 or 20 minutes for those bigs to engage, share contact information, ask each other questions, then that's going to probably save the need for the S, but you know it always happens anyway. So save your conversation for the chat and playtime before and after story time. Any questions on these guidelines?
I don't see any questions and just a quick 30-minute
Yep, yep,
remaining
we're
time
doing
mark.
good. Yep. All right, so chat. What else have you done to keep your bigs engaged during story time? Please put that in the chat box. And again, we can read a couple of those. If they are different than the ones and the 9 that I just shared with everybody as storytime guidelines.
While folks are typing, I'll share one thing I always did was I had a program that they could that was had the rhymes, had all the stories and everything for the day and other tips all in a program that they could have with them on their laps, but also go home. And often the kids would like to reenact story time with their family at home
Awesome.
afterwards.
Yeah, sending them home with resources. I'm going to talk about that right after this chat too. So wonderful, Kathy. Having a program, having all the lines or all the lyrics to songs and the words to the rhymes in that program, other tips for what to do at home. That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay, now they're coming in. Kids, they ask the kids sometimes to remind their grown-ups to be good listeners.
Good.
Invite everyone to join them on the rug if they're able to.
Right. Or chairs if they're not, but I always have those kids then join them in a chair.
Yep. Another uses slides for the adults to see not only the words but also directions for the activity.
Slides. Yep.
Post station directions during playtime that encourage bigs to play as well.
Good. So directions in that time before and after story time.
Comfortable back support chairs for
Yes.
parents on the floor, like those,
Oh, those leaning ones.
yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect. Wonderful.
Eye contact. Um, show, uh, ask them to sing along and show their children how to be proud of their singing voices.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. Yep. Okay, one more.
Props, props
Props. Yeah.
like scarves, egg shakers.
Yep. Shakers, scarves for them to engage with. Yep. Awesome. All right. So um, this last part of this webinar, I'd like to share ideas with you. If you've been in webinars with me before, you know that one of the primary things that I've talked about over and over again is the Every Child Ready to Read 5 practices. You probably know these. I encourage you to engage with the link that I gave you in your handout for this. It's at the top. One of your pages, it says part 4, using ECR's 5 practices. That link will give you a ton more information. Also, in the Library of Michigan archives, all the webinars that I've done for Kathy and for Library of Michigan are in the archives. And there's a plethora, a zillion ideas about the 5 practices. So just to reiterate, the 5 practices that we want to promote in all our story times is talking, and we also want to model these, that children need to hear before kindergarten, 30,000 words a day if they're going to be proficient readers later on in their educational career. So talking, running commentary, engaging with that child in a ton of conversation all day long is really important. For us in Storytime as librarians or those who are presenting Storytime, talking about what we're reading it, and then talking about what we read, talking throughout the story time, engaging with those bigs and kids to access their ideas during all of that. Singing, the second one, singing helps build vocabulary, helps promote the flow of language, helps identify syllables, does a number of wonderful things for language development. Reading, of course, is the single best thing that any big can do with a kid during the course of their lifetime. So we know how important reading is. Writing or pre-writing activities that emphasize the fact that there's meaning in print on paper, that what they can draw and what they can scribble and what they can talk about is going to emphasize the fact that they are starting to understand that there is meaning for print on paper. The pre-writing stuff also, the small motor skills that children need in order to engage in writing later is also, to me, a part of that writing. And then finally, playing. which is taking on roles and playing in games and playing in story and using the imagination to kind of figure out their worlds and try on roles. So playing is one of the key features of the 5 practices and one of the great learning tools that we can use. So we're going to start with singing, and I have some welcome songs and then some songs with action and engagement that I'd like to share with you. All the words are in your handouts. You can reference them later or follow along with them now. So I'm going to unshare right now so we can share some of these songs. All right. Nice to see you all. All right. So I always say, and I know that most of you probably already do this, is to welcome everybody into Storytime with a welcome song. So I have a few that I've listed in your handouts that I'd like to share with you. The first one is really for the babies and the little ones, and it's really wonderful because it's simple by just saying, hello, everybody, can you touch your nose? Touch your nose. Touch your nose. This is hello. Hello, everybody, can you touch your nose? Touch your nose. So if you can envision babies lying on laps during baby time, or toddlers sitting across from the big during toddler time, and you can even get away with this during preschool time because it's just fun. So you can go on with that to do all the other verses of hello, everybody, can you pat your head, pat your head, pat your head. Hello, everybody, can you pat your head, pat your head. There's a number of other ones that you can do. Rub your tummy, clap your hands, stomp your feet, wiggle your toes. And so this is a wonderful way to engage, especially during baby time and toddler time. Another one we're all familiar with if you're happy and you know it, but I love to do it if you're ready for a story. So if you're ready for a story, clap your hands. And again, the big and the kid is facing each other, so they have eye contact and they do this together. If you're ready for a story, clap your hands. If you're ready for a story, clap your hands. If you're ready for a story, then you really want to show it. If you're ready for a story, clap your hands. And all the others, stomp your feet, nod your head, say I am. Okay, so all of those are wonderful ways for welcome songs. I have a favorite welcome song that I've done numerous times during webinars, but I'd like to remind you of it right here because I add sign language. A lot of babies are learning sign language before they have their verbal. Sign language is being used so kids can express themselves maybe in ways that they're not able to with their words yet. And this is a wonderful one because it's familiar. Most people have learned it already, and it's called The More We Get Together. All right, so this is more in sign language. So 2 hands together, snaky faces together. 2 fists together with thumbs on top for the word together. And that is a big circle out in front of you, together. So the more we get together, and I have the whole group engage with the words with me while I'm teaching the sign language, more. So everybody say it with me, more. This is together, let's do it. Everybody say it with me, together. The more we get together, this is happy, the happier. So everybody pat both sides of your shoulders up, sweeping hands. And the happier we will be. This is a be in sign language, straight out from your mouth, be. So let's try that. The more we get together, the happier we will be. My favorite part, your, so pointing to somebody else, your friends. Take 2 friends, curl them this way and curl them this way. Your friends are my friends. My friends are your friends. So it sounds like this. The more we get together, 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 the more we get together, the happier we'll be. Your friends are my friends, and my friends are your friends. The more we get together, the happier we'll be. There's add-ons for read, right? The more we read together, the more we play together, the more we sing together. So you can add on verses for that one. That's one of my favorites. And there's a goodbye song to the same tune that we'll do at the end. Okay. So I love songs with action and engagement for bigs and kids to do together. So this one came out of Jay Brary. Yeah, it was one of their examples and I loved it. I've done similar things with this, but not exactly this one. So I'd like to do this one with you. And it is row, row, row your boat. So again, knee to knee sitting in chairs, or knee to knee on carpet squares, or better yet, if bigs can do this, because you know that most kids will be able to do this, is to put their feet together, so toe to toe. So stretch those legs out or knees slightly bent, toe to toe. They grab each other's hands and they actually do some rowing together, right? So it goes like this: row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. If you see a crocodile, don't forget to scream. Row, row, row your boat gently down the river. If you see a polar bear, don't forget to shiver. Brr. Row, row, row your boat gently down the shore. If you see a lion, don't forget to roar. Row, row, row your boat gently down the creek. If you see a little mouse, don't forget to squeak. Last verse. Row, row, row your boat gently on the rug. If you see someone you love, don't forget to hug. And if they're comfortable, reaching over and actually hugging big and little. Right. So I love that one for engagement, for familiarity, and also for the adaptations of adding all the sound effects and the lions in that, and the motion of rowing back and forth. Really wonderful engagement. Um, this next one is one that I learned at a camp, and it's a really fun one. So it's called "Hey There, You're a Real Cool Cat," right? And you're going to be calling bigs and littles up together to do this. So they're going to join and come up to the front and do it, and then they're going to stay up there until you get a whole bunch of people up to the front doing this. So it goes like this, and it involves those name tags. All right. So you're going to call people up um, one at a time. I see a question. How do you handle it when you have one big, which, oh, so the other two or three will be together, you know, with feet to feet and hands to hands if they have more than one kid. Great question. Or if there's extras in the room and there's an extra kid, you're just going to make sure that everybody's paired up. And if there's an odd person out, then you pair up and get down on the floor. Make sure everybody has a partner. If they don't want to do that, then it can be a threesome where they hold hands, like a round threesome, and they rock the same way, holding hands that way. All right, so you can do a threesome in that one. All right, this one's called "Hey There, You're a Real Cool Cat." And I call out names. So I'll use fictitious names to do this, but they're all sitting there. You're going to show this to them before you even start calling people up. So you're going to say, "Hey there, you're a real cool cat. You've got a lot of this and you've got a lot of that. So come up here and show us how you move. How you move, how you move." And you do that real slow so they have time to come up and take the front. When they get up to the front, you give them directions. So show us how you move. To the left, to the right, up high, down low. Hey there, Susie, you're a real cool cat. You've got a lot of this, you've got a lot of that. So come on up here and show us how you move, how you move, how you move. And they come up with their big. To the left, to the right, up high, down low. Do that until you have everybody up, or everybody who wants to get up. You can also do this by having them just stand out in the audience. So, hey there, Susie, you're a real cool cat. You've got a lot of this, you've got a lot of that. So, stay right there and show us how you move. So, you don't have to bring them all up if you don't want to. You can have them just stand up in your story time with their big and do this motion. So, that's a really, really fun one. All right, I've done this one. I did it during the summer of Tales with Tails, and it's a really fun one. And if you grew up when I did, and probably most of you didn't, we did a lot of hand jiving, right? We did it with our girlfriends. You did a lot of, see, playmate, come out and play with me. So I just did a short one so that I could engage bigs and littles in this one. They can get up to do this because it's a lot of shaking and moving. You can do it where they're sitting too. I'm going to actually get up and do this so I can show it to you. All right. Let me move this out of the way and see if I can get myself more visible here by doing this. Hopefully you can see me. And you start with your hands on your hips and you go shake your tail. I'm sorry, I got to look at it. Okay, I'm ready. First, I show them the clap, clap hand motion that they're going to do in this. So it's lap, lap, clap, clap, facing their big, hands together, clap, hands together, clap. And again, if there's 2 or 3 or more kids, they can do it to the sides. Hands together, clap, hands together, clap. So I show them that clap and let them practice. Lap, lap, real slow at first. Clap, clap. Hands together, clap, hands together, clap. Okay, hands on your hip. Shake your tail, stomp your feet. Use your hands to keep the beat. Lap, lap, clap, clap. Hands together, clap. Hands together, clap. Lap, lap, clap, clap. Hands together, clap. Hands together, clap. Shake your tail to the left. Shake your tail to the right. Shake your tail with all your might. Lap, lap, clap, clap. Hands clap. Hands clap. Lap, lap, clap, clap. Hands clap. Hands clap. Long tail, short tail, no tail at all. That's okay. We can use our paws. So close together this time. Lap, flap, clap, clap. Pause, clap, pause, clap. Lap, lap, clap, clap. Pause, clap, pause, clap. Last verse. Reach up high, squat down low. Grab those hands and row, row, row like we did before. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. One more time for the clap routine. Lap, lap, clap, clap, hands clap, hands clap. Lap, lap, clap, clap, hands clap, hands clap. It's a really fun engagement. Some of those bigs, especially if it's grandparents, are going to remember the hand jiving that we used to do when we were young. So I hope you'll do that one. All right. All right, so let me share again, and then we're going to talk about a couple of books that are totally family engagement. Kathy, any questions that I need to address?
We have one, well, we have a couple. So one is, how do you engage large families, especially if like the parent is occupied with an infant or toddler and there's an older child?
Right. So the same as I said before, if there's a lot of kids and the big has that baby on their lap, that means it's up to you to direct the other kids in that family to partner up with each other and give them good, clear instructions and demonstration and go over and help them with that. If there's a big family and they're having trouble, you can go over and stand near them and do it with one of them to demonstrate. That might help out. Again, I usually treat a lot of the activities that I do in story time, I treat that group as helping each other as well. So if other parents or other bigs or other caregivers, grandparents can step in and partner with those other kids, it's a wonderful way to get to know each other as well, to do it that way. So be creative about that and make sure they have a partner where it's going to work out really well for them, where it's going to be successful. Okay.
And then another quick one, about shy kids,
Oh
having
yeah.
stage fright or whatnot.
Right.
How do you encourage them but not put a spotlight on them to make them feel
Yep,
uncomfortable.
just by doing that, do what you're comfortable. If you're not ready, that's okay. You can watch the rest of us do what you're comfortable with or not at all. A lot of times, especially toddlers, you know the look, right? During story time, sort of looks like this. And they're not always totally engaged in motion because they're not ready for that yet, but they're taking all that in. So their observation skills are really strong at that age, and they're taking all that in. And it's not that they're not going to benefit from watching. By watching, they might be thinking, maybe I'll be comfortable doing that later. I'm not comfortable right now. It's really okay to give permission to kids and to bigs to do what they're comfortable with and not force the issue, but to encourage them. This is really fun. We hope you'll try it. Try and give it, if you want, you can just pat your legs while you're listening and watching. So give them ways to engage that might not be so intimidating, but also encourage them to be a part of that whole group. Yep. We know how to be sensitive to those littles when they're shy because, boy, before the age of 3 or 4, some of them are just not ready to engage that way, and we don't force the issue. If you think it's a song or an activity that's way beyond the age of the majority of the kids in your story time, pick things that are a little bit easier and a little bit more simple motion so that they don't feel overwhelmed. Okay, so I want to talk about 2 books that I love to use on 3 different levels. One, just reading them during story time, and then putting the book down and acting out everything in the story time or in the book during story time, or taking these 2 books and the activities that they lend themselves to and putting them in a center in your library where for the top one, the clap your hands, all the motions are there in there so that bigs and littles can go back, flip the cards. I'll show you in a minute what's in this book. Flip the cards and do those activities together independently. And for the bottom one, the squeaky door, having all the props I'm going to show you, either the big props or the little props in an activity center in your library. So during that play and chat time, before and after story time, or times when they're come in, you're welcoming them to come in and engage with the story they heard during story time, but do that play part on their own to reinforce all those benefits of play. So the first one is called Clap Your Hands. It's by Lorinda Bryan Cawley. And I'm going to unshare, but first of all, I want to show you that I also gave you all the words to this because I didn't put them in the handouts. You can grab the book. You can even watch the YouTube read alouds that are out there, numerous of them out there for just about every book now. But I gave you the words in the slides so that you had them as well in here. So let me unshare and show you the book. And I'm looking at the clock, so I'm not going to read all of these to you, but I want to read a few pages so you can see how this lends itself to engagement in story time. And again, Kathy, let me know if there's too much of a shine on this thing. Okay.
Looks
Are we
good right
okay?
there.
All right. Clap your hands. Lorinda Bryan Cawley, she's also the illustrator of this book. It's a 2-page spread. For each of it, there's 2-page spread, wonderful illustrations with animals and humans, but it is directing activity. So you read these 2-page spreads and everybody in your story time does them. There's two spreads in this book that are like somersaults and some other things that I always say that if you don't want things to get too raucous, you can always clip those pages together and not do those pages because it has a plethora of wonderful ways to move. So let me give you some examples. Rub your tummy, pat your head. So rub your tummy, everybody's going to do it, and you demonstrate doing it, and bigs are doing it as well. Find something yellow. We look through the room, find something yellow, find something red. Reach for the sky. Wiggle your toes. Stick out your tongue. Now touch your nose. Okay, so it goes on like that through the entire book, giving directions. These can be on a screen as well, right? So giving directions for all the motions, and it goes through the whole book. The ones that were really raucous, you can clip together. Find something big, find something small, spin in a circle, try not to fall. You can do them if you want to, but if you want to keep things a little bit more calm, you can. And it goes all the way down to whispering a secret and calling a name until finally at the end, it's saying goodbye. So it's time to go now. So wave bye-bye. Wonderful book. And I've used it often in story time. And so you can read it. Let's say you have a story time schedule, and in the first week, you read it, do all the motions. Second time they come in, you remind them of the book, but you have all the motions on cards and you just say them out loud and everybody does them. Third time they come to story time, maybe that book and all the action cards are in an independent activity center at your library, and you tell parents, the bigs and the kids, make sure you go over there and review those actions again and do them together for that repetition that is so important, that repeating that is so important to learning, language, and development. All right, so that's a wonderful one. The second book that I absolutely love, because Margaret Reed MacDonald is a storyteller that I adore. And she retold this story in a book. And you may have seen it before. It's called The Squeaky Door. And so, again, I'm going to only read part of it, but I'll show you the props that I use. You'll get the idea in the first 3 pages about what happens in this book. But it's a wonderful way to engage the first time you read it together, right? And the big and the kid facing each other does the repeating lines and all the sound effects in this, or if they're sitting close together, does all the repeating lines and all the sound effects in this story, and they go throughout the story. It's a really wonderful add-on story. So, okay. Little boy went to Grandma's house to spend the night. Grandma said, I have a surprise for you. You get to sleep in the big brass bed all by yourself. But are you going to be scared? Little boy said, no, not me. So let's practice that together because that's the kids' line. No, not me. And we'll practice this over and over again. Grandma tucked the little boy in. She kissed the boy goodnight. And if bigs and kids are comfortable, then the big plays grandma and kisses the little one goodnight. They can do that in the air. They can do that right on their kid. All right. Now, when I go out and turn off the light and close the door, are you going to be scared? And you can even have the bigs ask that question. Are you going to be scared? And the little one says, no, not me. So grandma tiptoed out, right? She turned off the light, click, great sound effects in this story. She closed the door, but it was a squeaky door. Squeak, boom. And the little boy began to cry. Look at him crying. You think he's scared? Scared of that squeaky door, right? Grandma ran back and said, oh my goodness, were you scared? And the little boy said, no, not me. Smaller voice. I think you were scared. How would you like to sleep with the cat? Oh, yes, 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 yes. So, to summarize, this goes on over and over again, but Grandma brings in the cat and stuffs that cat in bed with the little boy, kisses the boy, kisses the cat, shuts the squeaky door. They both cry, and Grandma continues to bring in animals to make the little boy feel better. A puppy. She goes out in the barn and brings the pig. In the story, it's a horse. So I have a little horse. You might have a stuffed horse, but I often use this one. You can extend the story by bringing in more animals, like the cow. But what happens at the end of this story is that they're all in bed together, and the door squeaks one more time, and they all jump and scream because they're afraid of the squeak, and the bed breaks. Grandma takes all of those animals back to where they sleep. She brings the little boy in bed with her and Grandpa. But the next day, she gets out her oil can and she fixes that squeaky door. The next time the little boy sleeps over, she lets that little boy sleep with the cat. So it's no, not me. Are you going to be scared? No, not me. I'll go get another animal. And it's lovely add-on repetition. So I have two ways of doing this. One is with the small animals. And I often do this with them on my lap as we act this out. So I provide a blanket. And in my version, because I found this wonderful little doll, it's a little girl who goes to bed. And while all this is happening, those animals then come into bed with the little girl on your lap, right? So you show this to them as each one comes in and gets tucked in and kissed by grandma, right? So you can do it with little props on your lap. I also do this as a play, get up and play and act it out. So bigs and littles are engaged, and we pick someone to be grandma and someone to be the kid. And I used a great big blanket, spread it out across chairs in a line. And as they add the animals to that group that gets into the bed with the little one, then we bring those animals in. But this time I just use visor hats for the cat and all the other animals. So I made those visors. This is the puppy dog. This is the pig, right? So you set it up, and it could be again in a series of three. The first story time one week, you read the story, do all the parts, the bigs and the kid parts, and act it out and do all the sound effects. Second week, you do it again, but you do it with all the small props on your lap. Third time, you engage in the third story time with the big props and get everybody up, actively playing and acting that story out. And it's just the most fun. So I hope that you'll use that one. Any questions on that one? And I know we're at the clock, but there's a couple more ideas I want to share. Any questions out there on that one?
Nope, go ahead and bring us to the end, Jen.
And all these other ideas. Okay, I'm going to talk about a few other engagements, and then I'll bring you right to the end. All right. So let me share again. Notorious, right, Kath? Notorious. Okay. Um, so there's the words for you. I like to engage families and kids in group games. I did a lot of this during the Adventure at Your Library summer, and also the summer of uh, the one where we were working together, all together now. So the first one is called the lily pad. And I have all the directions in your handouts. All feet in the middle, a big blow up ball with a face on it. The storyline is that they are a lily pad and the frog cannot fall off the lily pad. Nobody can use their hands, but the goal is to get that frog all the way around the lily pad without falling into the water. If it falls into the water, we start again. So it's really fun because all multi-generation have to engage with each other to use their knees and their feet and move closer together and work together to get that frog all the way around the lily pad. Another group game that I've used often multi-generationally with hoops is called Hoop the Hoop. Everybody in your group stands together and holds hands. You put a hoop in between those closed hands, and the goal is for them to use their arms without letting go, use their arms and help get that hoop around everybody's body in the circle until it comes back to the starting point. If you Google group games, it's a wonderful way to engage families. Other things that you'll find in the handout that I love to do with families is the old nursery rhymes. And so the first one is Ring Around the Rosie. And you can add on to that one, ashes, ashes, we all fall down. Ashes, ashes, we all spin around. Ashes, ashes, we howl like a hound, or any of the ones that you can think of to add on to that one. So nursery rhymes are something that are really beneficial, and I like to use them in engagement this way. London Bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down. London Bridge is falling down, my fair lady. So you have two bigs started off, making that bridge. You capture a kid on the word lady. Whoever's captured gets to become part of the bridge until everybody in your Storytime group has a chance to be the bridge and get captured. If you have a large group, you can do 2 lines or 3 lines of London Bridge is falling down. I have in the past done this incredible activity with nursery rhymes where I have put, and all of this is in your handout so you can see, I hand out to families, and sometimes families get together to do this. I hand out to families a packet, and it has a number on the top and scrambled up words for the first line of a nursery rhyme. This one is starlight, star bright, first star I see tonight. The families have to put all those cards down on the floor, unscramble them until they get the first line of that nursery rhyme. And the goal of this challenge, once they have that, is to go around the room, call out those numbers. They have to give the first line, but also provide the second line. It's really wonderful because not many people, nursery rhymes aren't being used as much. And what I loved was the grandparents really loved this activity. So in your packet, you have 14 different first lines. I put them on 5x7 cards, scramble them up, give them a number so that when they unscramble them, you can just call out the numbers. What happens is that everybody starts singing and saying the nursery rhymes together. And it's a really, really wonderful print on paper nursery rhyme activity. And finally, for the writing part of this, I'm going to unshare to show you these last ideas. In your packet, you're going to find a list of those nursery rhymes for that activity, but also another list of common folk tales and nursery rhymes. And for the writing part of this, I often do this for family nights. It's called the Four Square Story. They pick one of those nursery rhymes or those folk tales that they're familiar with, and together or separately, they draw 4 pictures. Print on paper, right? Meaning of print on paper that represents what happens in that nursery rhyme. I picked the itsy bitsy spider. Itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout. Can you see this at all? I don't know if you can see it. Down came the rain, washed the spider out. Out came the sun, dried up all the rain. Itsy bitsy spider went up the spout again. So they either do this together or they do it separately, depending on the age of the kids in your group. And they draw the first, what happened first and what happened last, and then next and next. They can color them. The other thing that's wonderful after they tell their story by using their pictures is to then give them some paper that has lines on it. Oh my goodness. So they can cut those pictures out, those 4 pictures out, glue them in this space, start writing the story, either dictated by the kid and the big writes it down, or if that kid's ready to do letters on print on paper, they write what they think's happening in that picture, staple them together. So now they have a book with meaning over pages. So that's another really wonderful activity. Okay. Finally, I want to talk just a little bit about this concept. And I mentioned it in the first part of this webinar, and that is thinking out of the box, right, for engagement, and thinking more during the weekends, evenings, school breaks, and summer reading. How can you offer multi-generational programs that are going to offer more family engagement? And so here's just a few ideas. There's more in your handout. Offering scavenger hunts in the library or in the community, doing a book swap like I talked about earlier, having physical game nights or group game nights, board game nights, bingo night, and any other way that you can think of that's going to bring those families together at the library multi-generationally and add more family engagement and more comfort in your library. So, are there any questions? And I know some people have left, but this will be on the recording all in all. So any questions out there about anything that I've shared today in this webinar? I know it's been a lot.
And Jen, if you want to stop your screen share there,
Yep.
if anybody wants to unmute and ask a question, you're welcome to, or you can put it in the chat.
And I also have my contact information there for you if you want to get a hold of me and ask me more questions, or you want to schedule a phone call and talk about some of this, I'm available to you. So please do that. And I will stop share if there's any question. A lot of information, I know, but if there's any questions.
Lots of great comments. A reminder to please complete the survey today for the Institute of Museum and Library Services. The Library of Michigan reports back to them, and they were our sponsors for today.
Thank them, please.
Yes.
I hope the information was useful. especially the deep dive into family engagement perhaps got you thinking sort of out of the box and what can I add on? Hopefully not overwhelming, but what's the next step? What more can we do? And I really want to emphasize the fact that your community partners in your community are essential. You can't do this all by yourself. They are essential for you to have success getting out in the community, going where families are, and knowing that the library is a place it can come back to.
Allegan District Library is asking for maybe more song suggestions with shy little ones.
Go to Jaybrary. Go to Jaybrary, the resource that I gave you on the bottom of the sheet, and
I'll
you will find a million. I'm exaggerating. You will find a ton of ideas for the little ones who are a little bit more shy. They're amazing.
I'll also add the summer reading manual. You're welcome to use those all year round, and there's a lot of rhymes and songs in those as well.
And a lot of research went into those summer manuals, and they are applicable all year round for story time. Any other questions? There was one more activity about making rope together. So if you want to learn that, get a hold of me. The directions are in your in your packet, but it's a really wonderful way to engage small motor. So that directions are in your handouts.
Well, thank you, Jen. Thank you for taking a deep dive. I know the idea book was a few years old, and I feel like it's such a great guide. It has
It
such
is.
great resources, and libraries have kind of moved on and forgotten about it. So I was really happy that you brought back the 5 R's or
Yep.
4 hours.
Five.
Five,
Yep.
yeah. Okay.
Five.
Five
Yep.
practices, 5 R's. And also that we can have storytime guidelines, we can have storytime rules, and that's okay. So thank you
Very
so
much.
much, Jen, for reinforcing it and bringing all of this to our attention today and for your time with us.
You are very welcome. The last point would be that you should end every story time with a lap song, right? And or a goodbye song. So I gave you goodbye songs that went with the welcome songs in your packet. But even just having that child sit in a lap and have a parent sing, "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You'll always know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away." Really wonderful way to end your story time. And I'll end with that song.
Thank you. And now we're all going to be glowing from that sunshine on these cold days.
We need it.
Thank you.